Good morning, everyone. Very, very disappointing game on Saturday. You got to give Boston College a lot of credit. They play better at home. They'd only lost one game at home. They're very physical, and I thought they played. Our guys played hard. They didn't quit. They played hard throughout the game. Played in the last quarter as hard as they did the first, but we didn't play well, and we didn't coach well. I thought we were comfortable. After going back and looking at it and studying it, we'd had our backs against the wall. We came back and fought and hard to win 3 games, going on the road up north, cold weather, week before your rival game. I thought they played harder and tougher than we did and coached better than we did. So I think that's the difference in the ball game. It's disappointing. It's my job, and I didn't get it done. This week, rival weeks across the country, senior day for those at home. It's a special week. It's the most exciting week, I think, in college football because rivalries are so special. And and then you take senior day, and these young guys come here and they play their guts out, and they spend time with their teammates, and this is the last time they'll ever be in Keenan Stadium. So it's really, really an emotional time. So this group has accomplished so much, and we want to send them out the right way. It's a huge game. Neither of us have gotten the expectations that we wanted this year. So the game is always really, really important, and will be no different this way. Be no different this week. You start looking at Boston College. It was the resilience. They played tough. They played hard. Again, I thought we got comfortable. I thought they were desperate for a bowl win, and I thought they played tougher and better and coached better than we did. As I said, offensively, we never got in sync. We had the ball 5 plays the first quarter. We had the ball 19 plays the first half. Going into the game, we said we had to stay on the field. It was going to be a running game, a 3rd and 4th down game. They made the 3rd and 4th downs, and we couldn't get them off the field defensively, and we couldn't stay on the field offensively. So Omarion only touched it 14 times during the game, but we didn't have it much. And we said we had to run the ball to win. We didn't. And when you get behind that far, that fast, then it's hard to just continue to run it. You got to throw it. Then we didn't protect well. In fact, we haven't protected well for the last 2 weeks. Our offensive line did not play very well in this game, and that's been unusual. They blocked really, really well in the running game against Wake Forest. They didn't do as well in the passing game. And then you go back and look, the play caller's got the worst job in the country if you're not blocking well, and especially when you're behind. And we talked about Chip after the game. He's got 4 other great coaches in there with him that sit there, and all of them have to have input. And we've got to do a better job of throwing the ball in this ball game because NC State's going to stack the box and try to stop Omarion just like Boston College and Wake Forest tried to do as we get ready to go into it. But we had too many sacks. We didn't secure our protections, and we were poor on 3rd and 4th down. So all the things that we said we had to do to win the game, we didn't do. And that's disappointing. We also had 3 turnovers to 1. And you got to win the running game. You got to win the turnover battle, and we didn't do either of those as we go. Defensively, we didn't play like we did the last 3 weeks. We had people to the quarterback, but we didn't tackle him. He's a new quarterback, but he's not a guy who is known for his running. Castellanos was, but this guy scrambled and really, really hurt us. In fact, a lot of their yards are when we could have tackled him in the backfield. We lost the tackle, and he scrambled and made first downs, which really, really hurt us because he escaped time and time again. And then they continued to make their 3rd and 4th downs and stay on the field. They had about double our time of possession. So not stopping the quarterback really hurt us. And then we gave up some more yardage rushing as the game went on because they just beat us down. Special teams, we won our special teams. We had the kickoff return for a touchdown. We had a great day punting the ball. There was one that we didn't do a good job with coverage. They had the good return back to the 15-yard line. But then on the 15, our defense did a good job of forcing field goals. Then our Lucas and Noah, our kickers, both did their jobs on a very windy day. So The biggest thing that was disappointing is we just had been consistent for 3 weeks, and then we went back to the inconsistency that we had during our 4-game stretch where we didn't play well. And we're not good enough to be consistent and win, and especially on the road. So Coach Dorn's in his 12th year at NC State. Obviously a rival game. It's very, very important to both fan bases. They jumped all over us last year and forced turnovers and stopped our running game and did all the things very much like Boston College did last week in the game last year. C.J. Bailey is a really, really good young player. He's exciting to watch. He's very tall. He can run. He can throw. He's a much better runner than the guy that just scrambled and beat us at Boston College, so we'll have our hands full with that. They've got maybe the best receiving core that we'll see. They're really, really talented at tight end and wide receivers. Smothers, Waters, they got a bunch of running backs they're really good defensively. They always play good. Tony Gibson's one of the best coaches in the country, but they've got 3 good running backs. Concepcion, you start looking at their guys, we'll have our hands full and have to play much better. Questions?
Last year, after that game last year, emotional game, obviously, but Coach Dorn made some pretty derogatory comments. Will you bring that up with the team again this week, or was last year just last year?
You know, with social media, you don't have to bring anything up anymore. They see it all. Dave's a good person. He's a good father. He's a good husband. He said something in a locker room that he didn't know was going to be public. Wished he hadn't said it. He and I have talked about it, so we're good moving forward. This is about this year's team.
Mack, you mentioned that BC was desperate. They obviously needed to win against you guys to clinch a bowl game. Obviously, you never want to lose, but do you feel like last week's experience in Boston, the silver lining is now you know what can happen against NC State if you don't come out tough?
Yes, the thing that you learn in life, and there's so many life's lessons in football, you learn that if you get comfortable, you're not going to be successful. In life, in anything, about the time we all feel like we're good, you've always got to be uncomfortable. You've always got to have an edge. You've always got to be a little anxious. And if you don't, somebody's about to take your job. So that's just what you do. I mean, you got to fight and compete every minute of every day. And we competed, but not as hard as they did, because they were in a desperate mode. They had to win. We felt like we had to win, but obviously we didn't. So now we're back. NC State's got to win to go to a bowl. We've got to win to stop the trend of NC State beating us. So it's all there. It's real, and the players know it, and that's what makes this game so much fun. And it makes football so good. It's all there. It's real. Now you got to go do it. And there's a difference in being physically strong and mentally strong. We got a tough team, but we weren't as mentally tough as they were on Saturday. And we're not good enough to win unless we do that. And that's just what we've got to go back to this week.
I asked you Saturday about the use or sometimes lack of use of Omarion, especially before the game got out of hand. You said to talk to Chip, and we'll ask Chip about it, but also you wanted to look at it yourself. After looking at it, what are your thoughts about some of the usage or not usage of them?
You know, it was a day where we never got in sync offensively. I mean, we were out of the game. They scored with 46 seconds left at middle 10. I mean, there wasn't many things that we did that were good during the game. So you get frustrated, and then you got to try to catch up, and then you got to throw it. We're not a team that can throw it every time. That's not what we're designed for. So everything that could have happened in that game was bad. Could Chip have handed it to him more and we'd have gotten beat the same? Probably. But what Chip was doing in retrospect, and all the coaches, and I talked about it a long time yesterday and today, what we're trying to do is win the game. You know, even analytics, when it's 41-7 or saying go for it on 4th and 12 at your minus 20, I mean, at some point, you're not going to win the game. So, but I was really proud that the offense did score late twice, got Jacoby back on track. They did some good things at the end of the game. The defense stopped them on the goal line, stopped them on a 4th and 2. So the kids kept playing, and they weren't happy with themselves. They understand we didn't play well, but I do think it was more the circumstances of the game.
Unrelated to that question, is it easier to cut the cord to Saturday because it's NC State this week? Or is there something that makes it more challenging because so much of the good vibe may have been derailed a little bit.
No, I think it's easier, but you've got to learn that what you do is you go back through that game, you try to figure out what you didn't do well, you learn from it, and you don't make the same mistakes twice. Coach Bowden always used to say, if you keep practicing a mistake, you're not going to change anything. So we've got to learn from it. We've got to have a better edge. We've got to play with more excitement and energy and confidence than we did last week.
Mack, is there a shift, given what Chip asked earlier, in State's approach to the game? Has there been a shift in the way you approach this game, and maybe coach the players to approach this game, or is it just the same as it's been?
No, I guess you're saying, Tommy, that some people say this is important and some don't and all that stuff. I've coached in rival games for 47 years and won most of them. It is really important. The players know it's important. The coaches know it's important. When something's that important to your fan base, it's important to you. I've known that my whole time. Now, if someone wants me to say I hate Coach Dorn and I hate NC State, I'm not a hater. I don't hate people. I hate to lose. So there's a fine line between that. But absolutely, this is an important game. We've always treated it as an important game. When we won the first two by a lot of points, nobody talked about it because we were supposed to. Then we lost one that we should have won, that we had a 9-point lead with a minute 56 seconds left. And we blew 2 coverages and missed an onside kick, or we would have won 3 in a row. And then we got beaten overtime with a missed kick. And then last year we didn't play well. So these games have been great games. They've come down to the end. They had won 2, we had won 2. Last year they whipped us good. So that's what we got. But am I going to approach it like I always do? Yes. Like it's very important? Yes. Like, do we need to do our best job coaching, our best job playing with the most energy we've got? Yes. So that has not changed. Whatever that perception is, maybe has, but I don't care. It's really interesting. Nobody's in that locker room, and nobody's in that meeting room, and nobody knows how we ever approach a game. What I say publicly might be different than what I say privately as well.
Mack, did Dave call you right after that game or pretty soon after that game?
Well, let's move on from that. This is about this year's game.
All right, let me ask Coach Colby.
Yes.
You had done like 150 passes without interception. You left him in the game late. You feel like you got it out of the system. He won't be gun shy going into it.
We did, Chip. We actually talked about at the end of the game, should we put Connor in and make sure Jacoby doesn't get hurt? But more than that, we wanted him to get his confidence back. And we felt like he did that. He had a couple of great drives at the end, and so it worked. After the game was over, it worked well for us to get him more confidence leaving the game.
Mack, there was a report last week about you discussing your intentions to return next season. Have you had any recent conversations with Bubba Cunningham about, coaching in the future and what might happen at the end of the year?
You never talk to your athletic director till the year's over. Everybody always does that. My total focus is on NC State. What an awful thing to be talking about me when we just played a bad game and need to beat State.
And I guess just along those lines, is it still your intention to return next season?
Yes. Since I asked you not to talk about it. Thank you for respecting my question.
Rutgers said after the game that they wanted it more than we did, which I wish you hadn't said that. But the other thing is that the comfort. When do you learn that your team is too comfortable? Can you tell before the game? Does
No.
it happen on the field?
No, Art, it's a most amazing thing. We had great weeks practice. Guys had energy. When you were sitting in here telling me to make sure they're ready, I actually thought they were. I think when they make the 3 third downs in a row, and I looked up and there's 8 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first quarter and we hadn't gotten the ball, and then we go for a 3 and out, then you start saying, And some of it, when you're not doing well, you lose some confidence, and then you got to fight back, and we didn't do that. We competed, we fought, but they just kept moving the ball, and we kept 3 and outs and turned the ball over. And but no, you can't ever tell. We were even talking this morning. Sometimes when you practice bad during the week, you play better. You have no idea how they're going to play.
So, I mean, your team knows. You said it last week that they know that you had a chance to post the best record in 6 years.
Yes.
And then the best player in defense says they want it more than we do. That just doesn't make sense to me. I
Yeah.
mean, you can lose, but
Yeah. It's a lot of times when you all are asking questions, people are really, really disappointed, and they're very emotional. And sometimes those Saturday night questions really aren't the answers that they would give you on Sunday or Monday. And he's a young man, and he was very, very disappointed. If you watch the game and the outcome of the game, it does look like they wanted it more than us. They didn't want it more than us, but they played better than us. And that's the difference in however you structure it. You've been doing this a long time. I've said some really stupid things after a game on Saturday that I look back on Sunday and say, God, why did I say that? But you're mad, you're frustrated, you're trying to figure it out, and you're dealing with 80 guys on a trip. So how do you know who's ready to play and who's not? And how do you know who plays better during the game and not? How do you know who got discouraged? How do you know who got hurt a little bit? You usually try to figure all that out when you get back on Sunday.
getting to a bowl is a big thing. You think that played into any complacency that they had? That they were satisfied?
You know, it's all subjective, and you sit here and you try to figure out what you think. And then everybody else thinks their own things. I don't think there's any doubt that in my mind, as I look back at it, we got comfortable. Weren't going to go to a bowl, weren't going to have a winning season. We accomplished 3 wins in a row. We played really well during those 3 wins. We got our bowl accomplished. We got a huge game with NC State the next week. We're going on the road to play a team that's 5-4, 5-4. So yeah, I think we got more comfortable than we should have.
Max,
It's Thanksgiving week. Can you share with us what you're thankful for?
Yeah, you know, this has been a real learning year for me because of Ty Lee. And I learned after we lost Ty Lee that if you have your health, you've got everything. If you and your family and your friends have their health, you've got no problems. Everything else we try to fix in our lives. But some of that we can't fix. And I saw Ty Lee at 23 have his life taken away when we couldn't fix it. We kept him alive for a long time. So I have learned at 73 years old for the first time that every morning I get up, I better be grateful if I have my health and my family has their health and my friends have their health and this football team has its health. And then you start from there with gratitude and being grateful for that, not just Thanksgiving grateful, because we'll all say what we're thankful for this week. It's like our military, it's like Veterans Day. We better be thankful for the military every day, because we wouldn't have our lives like they are today unless they fight every day. And the same thing with Thanksgiving for me. Thanksgiving is a time that we say that it's important to say thanks, but we should do it every morning when we get up. And I start every team meeting now after losing Ty Lee with, let's be grateful for our health. And I pray every night for my family and our teams being healthy. I used to pray for their happiness too, and I figure maybe overloading God from my standpoint there a little bit, so I'd say you guys need to work on being happy yourself. But as long as you're healthy, you got a chance to do that. So more than anything else, I've got a wonderful life, but the most important thing to me is that my friends, my family, me, and our team are healthy.
Going back to what Evan was asking you about your future, have you had an increasing number of questions from commitments, from potential commitments, even in the class of 26 for sure, and also calls from parents? Because they've seen reports, whether the reports are accurate or not. Has that kind of heightened the interaction you've had to have with people asking?
Nah, I've been asked for, when you're 73, you ask every day.
But has it increased in the last?
No. Well, it really hadn't. I mean, recruits have asked every year, every day, how long are you going to do this? And I said, I'm going to do it as long as I'm happy, as long as I'm healthy, and as long as I'm effective. I'm not going to think about retiring. I'm not going to talk about retiring. I hadn't changed that for 6 years. I learned that from Texas. And there will be a morning when I'll get up and I'll say, you know what? Somebody else should be leading this team. They're better than I am at this point. And then I'll go do something else. But I got way too much to do to be worried about next week. I'm trying to beat NC State.
So when a player sees stuff that's out there, because as you said a few minutes ago, they see everything that's out there, when they come to you, you're telling them the same thing you're telling us.
Not one player has ever come to me and asked me about my future. Not one coach has ever come to me and asked me about my future. That's what happens this time of the year. It's really funny when I talk to my friends. If you lose a game now, you're fired. It's 100%. It's unbelievable. That got to be gone. Don't want, and the message boards are worse. I mean, they're all the same thing with just different names, but they all got the same stuff on them. So why do you worry about it? You just got to do your job.
Because some of the stuff that comes out and ends up making it into respectable publications, we don't always know exactly what that discourse is. That's why we have to ask you about it.
What you might think is respectable might be different from what I think is respectable too. So, because the one writing it or saying it's what I think is respectable or not. Maybe not the job. So, other questions?
And when you're 73, people will ask about retirement.
Every day. Yeah, thank you, Chip. When are you going to quit? Have you been asked? I've been reading about it. Yeah.
Unless you're running for president, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Mack, for you along those lines, what is it you think that keeps you going, and do you feel like that morning could be close?
Well, there we go. He just asked me again if I was quitting. There you go. That's just a different way to do it. So, yeah.
Respectable publication, right?
Yeah, well,
So he's doing it
there you go. There you go. What I do this for is the kids. You have a powerful purpose in your life when you can help change someone's life. Not many of us get to do that. I didn't get to do it with TV. I started reporting on things, but I didn't change people's lives. So when you're talking about suicide and Jake Lawler comes upstairs right after it and says, "Coach, I've been thinking about suicide," that changes a life. And I text with Jake all the time, and I see him on Twitter, and he's doing such a great job as a screenwriter, and we could have lost him. So what people don't understand is after a game where everybody would like to beat somebody up for losing and praise somebody too much for winning, I've got to go worry about mental health. I've got to go worry about these young people's lives. So I've got to take every one of them, and there's that real fine balance between trying to encourage them to get better, pushing them hard to get better, and making sure that they're at an okay place mentally because of all the bullying now that happens on social media and all that stuff. I've had a wonderful life. If I said I would have swapped my life for Tylee's, if I could have done it that day, I would have swapped it. I've done all the things he didn't get to do in my life. So when people say, are you going to do this, you're going to do that, well, it's not about me. I've got the best life in the world. So my job is to try to help others. And what I can do right now is try to help these players.
Mack, you've mentioned in the past that when it is senior day, you have to guard against the guys being too amped up, especially in the beginning of the game, and especially when it's an opponent like NC State. You have two seniors on the roster, Jakeem and Josh, who played for NC State in the past. Are you planning to maybe pull them aside sometime this week and just make sure that they're in a good headspace going into this game?
Yeah, I talk to all the players like that. We'll talk to all the seniors. And I've always said you cry before the game, but make sure if you're going to cry after the game because you won, you're happy. Don't cry before the game, get beat and not play well. So it's a real emotional time. You think about all the times a Power Eccles has put, Cayman Ruckers put into this place. And this will be the last time they'll ever dress in that uniform on this field. And that's pretty powerful now for the rest of your life. So it is a very, very emotional week. And it's always crazy that one of the two always has senior day for the rival game. And then the other one doesn't, which is kind of weird too. So if you get on that year, it adds to the emotion.
Do you like that arrangement, always playing State on the last week of the year?
You know, I've never thought about it because I only think about things I have some control over. And right now in my life, I got very little control over much. So I'm trying to figure out what I do have control of and do it good. But it is what it is.
Can you tell us if there's any players that you know that are going to walk Saturday but have an option to come back?
We're giving you Jeremy's got you a list.
There's some that have an option to come back but might
Yeah.
walk. I mean, you talked about it in previous years.
Yeah. The coaches have talked to all of them. I think most of them are coming back if they can. The asterisks on there are the ones that are definitely, they can't play anymore. Their eligibility's up.
Mack, with 1 week to go in the regular season, we've not gotten to the 12-team CFP yet, but has that hurt or enhanced the regular season at this point?
I think what it's done is it's dominated the media more than in our past, because right now all the talk's about the 12 teams, and we're all going to be mad at 13, 14, 15 that don't get in, like we were mad at 5, 6, and 7 that didn't get in when we had 4. I mean, we're back to the same stuff, just more talk. I'm afraid that it may hurt the bowl games, because there's going to be less talk about the bowl games. And when you think of all the teams that they've got, only 12 can play in the 12-team playoff. There's a lot more of them that'll be in bowl games that can't play. So I don't want to diminish what a bowl game does for someone who does not have a program, who in most years can get to the playoffs and still not have a reward system for their team at the end of a good year.
When you look at the playoff, Indiana, SMU, maybe BYU or Colorado or Arizona State may make it to the playoff, sort of expanding the number of teams that are possible to get there. When you look at that and you look at where your program is that a realistic goal for this program, to be one of those 12 and to be in the playoff?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, you've got to think that. You look TCU last year. Nobody thought about TCU before the season, and everybody would have asked Sonny Dykes that question. He would have said yes, and you would have said, yeah, sure. And here he is playing the national championship, so sure it is. And I do think the fact that your conference champion gets an automatic bid really, really helps the different conferences to have a representation, even if their team wouldn't be in the top 5 or 6 on a normal year.
What will it take to get this program to that level? Obviously, you guys were close maybe the last couple of years. What kind of investment or what will it take to kind of get you in that picture late November?
Yeah, that would be about an hour-and-a-half conversation at some point where we'd sit down with the NIL's been crazy, transfer portal's been crazy. Revenue sharing is going to help the schools that haven't had a lot of NIL money, because you're going to have more than you've had. Still, the collectives, the ones that have the most money, are still going to have the most money. So, but the revenue sharing, when that money gets divided and your department determines how much you're going to get, will give schools like us more money for the players than we've had. So that will help definitely.
You got through the last couple of weeks without having to use Caleb Hood. Now you got him for the last 2.
Yes.
What does that kind of do for the running back situation?
Yeah, it obviously gives us depth. And they said this morning that now Darwin Barlow is going to be back this week too. So we'll watch him tomorrow, right? That was on there. So we'll get to watch him, and then Coach Porter just got to figure out how that balance is. Davion Goss has done a good job when he's come in. So he's really a good player. But now we've got Caleb for this game and for the bowl game. And we were trying to hold him just so we would have him available for this game if we needed him.
You said earlier about the last 2 possessions, getting Jacoby some confidence back. Had to do a lot for Davion too. He had a lot of success those 2 series.
It really did. And he's a good player, and he played with C.J. Bailey, the quarterback at NC State. So this will be a special game for those 2.
Mack, has Amarian indicated to you this might be his last game? You said that before, I didn't know.
Yeah, he has not. He would. Yeah. No, he. In fact, I heard that some of you all asked him, and he said, "I want to think about that after the game, or after the last game, or after the bowl game, or something." And I've never asked him, because he would say, "Coach, I want to beat NC State." That would be all he'd say. In fact, he might not say coach. He'd just say, "I want to beat NC State." That'd be a long conversation with him. But what we will do is Brian Simmons is our NFL liaison now with the scouts. He and Coach Porter and I will sit down with Dad and Mom and Omarion and just talk about what's best for him. And then we'll definitely do what's best for him.
Just rivalry games, what are your thoughts on the Texas A&M game coming back?
You know, when you, it is the NC State, you're supposed to say Irish first. I got in trouble with that at Texas. It is the NC State rivalry in this state. It's that all the people, it's just a bigger state, but all the people work together. All the people have grown up together. A lot of the families have people at both schools. And when you do that, it's really emotional. We said there were divorces over it. There were times that people wouldn't even eat Thanksgiving dinner together. There were all kinds of different colors that are scattered throughout the stadium during the game. So I love rival games. And I hated it when the Texas A&M game was not being played anymore. And I think this is really cool that not only are they playing again, but they're playing in the same conference. So it usually has national implications. It'll have conference implications. So that's what makes this game with NC State so special. Everybody in this state will be aware of our game this week. Everybody in the state of Texas is going to be aware of the Texas A&M game this week. And that's pretty cool when high school football in your state, high school coaches, and every person in this state, whether they have a favorite or not, all of them will be watching this game on Saturday.
It'll change the decision that a running back would have to make. In the past, you'd say, I mean, you can't take another 250 carries. You got to get to the NFL and get your contract started. But now, you know, you could probably make a lot of money in NIL and other opportunities here. Does that change, especially for a running back, where they have a short shelf life, they're not getting second contracts in the NFL? Does that factor in the decision differently than maybe in the past? You've had some running backs that were, you know, got a lot of carries in college as well.
Yeah, you know, you've got to look at right now, running backs aren't being drafted as high as they were at one time, which is interesting too, to me, and that's a discussion everybody's had, obviously, with no answers. So what we will do is we will sit down with him, and our job is to tell a guy like Omarion all of his options. Here's where we think you're going to be drafted. Here are the teams that we feel like are interested in you. Here's how much money you would make. Here's the contract we think you would get. And then turn it back over to he and his family. And unless they ask our opinion of what we think he should do, then it's not our place to give our opinion. If he asks us, what do you think we should do? I told Vince Young, you should leave. I mean, he said, I'm going to make $20 million. What would you do if I was your son? I said, my son's short, and he's slow, and he's not being offered $20 million. So, but it would have been best for us for Vince to stay. But how can you honestly say you're doing this for the best of the players, and that's your purpose, and then tell one something that is in your best interest that's not in his best interest?
Staying on that, not to overblow Omarion, who he is, how he might be remembered, but is there also a value in attaining legendary status in a school where that can help you? You always say create your NIL for life. So let's say he comes back, breaks all the records, contends for a Heisman, you guys have a great year, he could be a legend forever, and that could pay off in a lot of different ways for the rest of his life. Is there a way you can pitch that to a kid and say, look, this is on the table too?
Well, there is. I pitched it to Drake, and he said $40 million worth of NIL. And I said,
But in Omarion's case, he doesn't have that $40 million sitting.
No, but he's going to make a whole lot of money if he goes. So, and again, the things have changed so much, and this is where, as a 73-year-old, you have to really adapt. When we went to the Orange Bowl and we had 4 kids not play, I thought, what a dream for North Carolina to be in the Orange Bowl with a chance to beat number 5 Texas A&M. And I knew then it was different. Because when those 4 said, I'm not going to play in the Orange Bowl for North Carolina, I thought, wow, really? So I've had to really adjust to that, because that's different than definitely than the way I was raised. Huh?
I remember when it came out when Javante came and told you guys he was going to play and then wasn't going to play, and people, there was uproar. That was just 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's expected. People are now factoring, well, that guy's not going to play.
That's what I mean. So that answers your question.
Yeah.
Matt, I want to ask you about adjustments in terms of recruiting. When the early signing period is, I guess it's 10 days away. With the transfer restrictions that have changed, how much has that impacted how you're looking at high school recruiting in general? And is there does high school recruiting, let's say, benefit, does it benefit you to look at high school for certain positions versus transfers for certain positions, or is that balance of immediate versus the long-term
Yeah.
recruiting?
Aaron, it's a great question, and we're all evolving through our new thought process. We signed 26 high school guys 2 years ago. And we're tighter on our numbers because you signed 26, and we haven't had that many leave. But then if they're going to cut you to 105 probably. So you don't want to take an average player. It's harder to take a player that you feel like you're going to have to develop over 3 or 4 years. People are getting fired now in 2. So it's not like we got patience anymore. And then when you get a really good one, and other teams that have a lot more money than you do don't get what they want, they come in and buy yours. So that's where the transfer portal has to become more important, because you want to get a great high school player because you need him to play in the first or second year, and that's what makes it different. So we're going to sign a small high school class this year and look to have a heavy year in the portal, more than we did last year. And you've got to replace your guys that we're losing defensive linemen. So that's who we've got to replace in the portal. Everywhere else, we'll get somebody if we need them, but we have to have a good portal defensive line class for us to be able to maintain the things Ted's done this year up front on defense.
Have you been told how much of that $20.5 million of revenue sharing is coming to football?
No, we haven't.
On the NIL, I mean, and to build off Beard's question, is money spent either way, but have you found that there's more value in the older developed guys versus wondering about the younger potential guys?
Tommy, it's another great thought. It's really hurt high school recruiting that you can go pay for a guy in the portal with experience because you know who he is at 20 years old. If you're looking at a 16, 17-year-old, I'm seeing so many friends of mine and high school coaches that are just so frustrated because guys 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that would have been recruited at a high level now are not getting offers, or they're getting offers at a lower level. And it's really frustrating, and I've told them, go to your school, and what's going to happen if you play well enough, somebody's going to look at you, and it's kind of like your second contract in the NFL. It's sad, but that's what we've got. And then you look at, I think there's maybe 12 group of 5 jobs open. Right now, they're losing their players. So those jobs are harder than ever because they can't keep a great player. If you're sitting there now as a college coach, you watch a team play and he's got a really good one, you pull out your Google and take notes. I mean, it's really sad of what's happening with where we're headed with this. But absolutely, we went over every transfer that we've taken the other day. And we went over all the ones that have left us. And our coaches have done a really good job of getting transfers who have played. And that's hard to do because there's a lot of people with a lot of money that the money doesn't guarantee you success. We're seeing that. So we have taken lesser money and done a really good job of getting the right transfers here. Not all of them have worked, but it's just what you said. It's an older, experienced guy, and he helps you immediately where there's not enough patience in our business anymore to wait for 3 years. And I hate that for high school coaches. I hate that for high school kids, but it's realistic, and that's what's really happening.
On that note, what do you think is the hardest position or position currently to develop?
The risk mainly for your high school kids are quarterbacks. Is it the system? Is it him? How's he going to fit in your system? How does he do? And offensive linemen. When you get an average offensive lineman in the portal, everybody's after him. It's amazing how hard it is to find the right offensive lineman, and especially to get 8 of them that can play, and you may be taking a 260-pound guy that ends up being 310. So the transition of his life and his body is so different for those guys. But those are the hardest to recruit.
Along those lines with the portal and everything, you guys have done a pretty good job keeping a lot of the kids that you've wanted to keep that were poachable from the portal. How much of your NIL funds has to go to keeping what you have here first before you go out and get other guys, because you have a lot of needs you're going to need to fill the portal this year.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's a pretty difficult balance to make there.
Yeah, if you think how much this business has changed, we're looking at retention of our current roster, and then we're looking at transfer portal with the others along with signing day. And that's why they lighten the load for college coaches in December. We can't go out recruiting in December because we can have the transfer portal guys come here. And last year you were practicing for your bowl or playoffs. You were trying to get all your high school guys, you're visiting them for signing date in the middle of December, or 16th, 18th, 19th, whatever it was. And then you were recruiting transfers. I mean, it's just an absolute crazy month, so it'll be less crazy, but you're absolutely right. What's going to happen in the future, and it'll be more like the NFL front office, you've got to think about how much money do you distribute to the guys you have to keep them, and how much do you have? And even Ted Monachino, we're lucky to have pro guys. Ted Monachino, Freddie Kitchens, and Clyde Christensen have helped us a lot. But they're saying if you have to pay your left tackle this, and your right guard and your right tackle need this, and the pros, and you only have enough money for either these two or that one, you got to let somebody go. So you're really having to look at the evaluation of your team, of your talent, and where that money gets distributed as you move forward. So coaching will be less about recruiting, continued to be huge in evaluation, but then coaches are either going to have to do a better job of evaluating who's on your team, because where does the money go when you get the revenue sharing? Because that revenue sharing has to be for your team and the portal. So it's all new ground for all of us.
You touched on it just there, but how much do you think the rev share aspect will help with that?
The rev share will really help people who haven't had a lot in their collective, because it'll give you at least a better opportunity, more of a fair shake other than the collective. When the NCAA, and I think this is right, said that we'd rather not have collectives, let's just do the revenue sharing, that would have been the best for schools like us, because that way it would have been more balanced. But when you still keep the collective on top of the revenue sharing, the ones that can still have 14 million in the collective or 20 million in the collective can still have that. But at least you've got a young guy who wants to come here and wants to be at North Carolina, we'll have the ability to pay him like the other schools are being able to pay with revenue sharing. That's what'll help some.
I realize I'm asking this to a Hall of Fame coach, but in the NFL, the coaches are sort of disposable in the way that, you know, the GM is more important. You've got to bring in this team, manage that cap and all that. Will that happen in college football, or because of the difference in whatever, that the coach will retain his importance?
Yeah, I think the coach will always be important in college football. But I do think that when you start looking at recruiting, they're looking at the possibility of anybody being able to go out and recruit. So will people start getting young recruiters to go and older coaches to all stay on campus and coach? And then again, the evaluation of who you take, because now you're not only taking them, it used to be giving them a scholarship. In the future, it's going to be giving them money. And how much money do you have, and where is it distributed? So you're going to have to make the right decision to get the right player at the right price that fits your school, and you've got to try to get a guy that you can keep. Omarion and Kamon Rucker are two great examples of guys that we got, and they could have very easily left, but they decided to stay because they were loyal to the place and loved the place. And they're two of our best players. A lot of people couldn't have kept them. This place kept them. And that's what we've got to look at. So why take a guy that you feel like you're going to lose after a year, because that hurts you more, because then you develop him a year and then you lose him, and you've helped somebody else get a better player. So you got to try to figure out who fits here, who can you afford to take here, and who's going to stay here. So it's gotten much more complicated than it used to be to just offer a scholarship. Okay? Thank you all. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you on Saturday.
Matt, to clarify something,